right, I'm going to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. Tonight we have 3 committees, so we'll do Finance first, Street second, and Safety third. If people have comments to make, when you come up to the microphone, you give your name and your address for the record. This is being recorded so the secretary can, or so the clerk of council can take the minutes. Okay, so on finance, we have several items. First, we have Resolution 16-50, appropriating monies for the current expenses of the municipal corporation. And the first is for Services General, $4,850. Mr. Rhodes.
Yes, what this is, unfortunately, the gal who takes care of the custodial needs in the city has been put on a medical leave for a period of time. We did our due diligence. We met with the union to see if another union employee would like to do these duties, because that's what the collective bargaining agreement calls for. At that point, we were informed that there wasn't another union employee who wanted to do the duties, so they said we could contract out for these duties to be done. So what we're doing is we're taking these dollars out of payroll dollars that we would normally be paying the employee, and we're putting them into an account so that we can pay some custodial services.
Okay.
Motion.
Okay. Motion by Bob. Second by, is that you, Joe?
It was.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion? Anything from the audience? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. All right, and the second part of that is the disappropriation of funds of the same amount of money for the same thing, right?
Yes, sir.
Motion.
Okay, motion by Bub. Second by Raph. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The third item is for termination pay vacation from the unappropriated balance of compensated absences fund in the amount of $1,550 for Louise Cheney. Is there somebody to speak about this?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Again, a motion by Bub, second by Raph. Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Municipal Council. Okay. Okay. On to Resolution 16-51, which again has several parts to it. $500 donation for flowers for City Hall for $500. Mr. Rhodes?
Yes, this comes from the Bill and Sue Moore Fund, former Mayor Moore, and we've been gifted $500 from the Licking County Foundations for the beautification of City Hall.
That's
Motion.
very nice. Okay, motion by Doug. Second by, okay, by Cost. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion passes. All right. The next part, a request for appropriation of the unappropriated balance of $152 Budget Stabilization Fund in the amount of $300,000 for the maintenance of streets.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What this is, you'll see that there's 3 sections here, and what we're asking for after a lot of conversation with some council members is $300,000 from the Budget Stabilization Fund. That would then go into the unappropriated balance of the general fund, and then from there it would go into the capital improvements fund. It's my understanding per the auditor that we can't take it directly out of budget stabilization into capital improvements, and it needs to be done in this manner in order to do it properly. Did I get that right, Steve?
You got it.
All right. So our meeting paid off this morning.
It did.
All right.
And we're talking basically money for paving.
For paving. This would be money for paving. If you remember a couple of weeks back, I came in and I asked for $80,000 out of capital improvements for paving. We would add the $300,000 to that 80. We would have a paving dollars this year of $380,000. If you remember, we cut back capital improvements from an 85-15 to a 90-10 to balance the budget. The last month worth of collections, because the tax department worked hard and got some dollars in, they over collected some funds, and so we feel as though we're comfortable enough to have a paving program this year.
Okay. I asked you earlier if you had just an idea of what we would have left in budget stabilization at that point.
And I'll defer to the auditor.
Okay.
I think at the end of the year, we'll have about 200,000.
Okay. Okay. Are there any questions?
Make a motion.
Okay. Motion by Doug, second by Raph. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Next one is, again, moving it to the general fund.
Motion.
Okay. Motion by Doug, second by Raph. Any discussion? Any questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. And finally, put it into the capital improvements fund, same $300,000.
Motion.
Motion by Bud, second by Raph. Any questions or discussion?
I have a question.
Okay.
Will we have to allocate this out of capital improvements to actually do the paving? Is there another piece of legislation that, in order to get dollars into paving?
Yeah, we put it in the capital improvement. Well, Steve, will this go directly?
That'll appropriate, this will appropriate.
This will appropriate it?
Okay. Thank you.
So the answer to that would be no.
Teamwork.
Teamwork.
Just curious, what, does that piece need to go through capital improvement committee, or?
No. No, it's appropriate. It's moved into the capital improvements budget, which the auditor just mentioned. It wouldn't have to go through committee.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Okay,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much, Mr. Rhodes. On to Ordinance 16-14 to provide for the issuance of $1,100,000 of bond anticipation notes. I'm going to let you explain all this, Steve.
I'll try to simplify this.
Okay.
We have a bond anticipation note in the amount of $6.6 million. $5.5 million of that was issued to build the downtown fire station. $1.1 million was for various capital needs. What Ordinance 16-14 will do is it will renew the $1.1 million for one more year. A year from now, there'll be another $1.1 million note due that was also various capital needs. Those two will be combined next year, and we'll issue a bond to retire that debt. So what we initially did was we tried to simplify the debt instrument and also reduce the expense of issuing the debt. So that's why we had one bond anticipation note. We're breaking those apart now, but the legislation has to sort of roadmap what we've done. So you see everything listed in here, but this first piece of legislation only will renew the $1.1 million for 1 year.
Any questions?
Make a motion.
Okay, motion by Doug,
Second.
second by Frazier. Okay, any additional questions?
Do you anticipate, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Do you anticipate that the interest rate will go down next year? And for this bond, what, 5%?
No, the note, the bond anticipation note that we're retiring was at 1.25%. So it'll be reissued in some point in July, and I would imagine that the interest rate would be just a little bit higher at that point, probably nothing radical, but maybe a few basis points higher. Now, when we sell bonds next year, I don't know where it will be. A lot of that depends on the election.
Absolutely.
So, who knows?
Who knows? If you knew, you would be a millionaire.
I would.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Have any more questions or
Oh, we
discussion?
didn't do the racing.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And finally, Ordinance 16-15, which is the $5,620,000, again for capital improvements, the rest of the money that Steve was talking about.
Right, this is the balance, and this is going to be a bond a bond issue for 25 years. This will eliminate the fire station debt.
Okay.
Motion.
Okay, motion by Bub,
I'll second.
second by Frazier. Any questions or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
And we are done. The Finance Committee. Street Committee is now. Okay, I'm going to call the Street Committee to order. Members present are Hull, Blake, Rath, Roletta, Johnson, Floyd, and Frazier sitting in for Mr. Marmee. The discussion tonight is vacating a portion of an alley running north and south between Fairlawn Avenue and Woodlawn Avenue. Within your packet, you got a map of it, and you got some information and a signed petition and a great deal of information. So on that, do you want to speak to this alley vacation, please? And this is just the beginning step. If this gets out of committee, it would then go to full council, and from there it would be about 2 months before the alley would actually be vacated. Okay, I need name and address, please.
I'm Diana Corder, and I live at 964 Fairlawn Avenue.
Okay?
I'm Debbie Sayre, 963 Woodlawn Avenue.
Okay. S-A-Y-R-E?
Yes, ma'am. Very many people spell it.
Okay. Diane, you want to start and explain to us why you want this alley vacated?
Well, the main reason is the alley at Debbie's end and at our end is basically our driveways. If you come in from Fairlawn and turn from Fairlawn to go in the alley beside our house, takes you right to our garage. That's the only purpose it serves. At the other end, you've got the four-way, which we're not talking about closing any of the longer alley off. Then you go across, and that's when Debbie's alley comes into play. And basically, their alley is used for the same thing. You pull off of Woodlawn, you pull in the alley. On one side is the driveway for Omar, and then on the other side is Debbie's driveway.
Okay. Do you want to say anything, Debbie?
No, go ahead. You can talk.
No, we have, another reason we're trying this is we have small children on that alley. I babysit a 3-year-old every day. I have my 2-year-old granddaughter 3 and 4 times a week. I have small pets. The girl across the alley has small pets and a 3-year-old. And the 3-year-old and the 2-year-old don't understand that they can't run back and forth playing, and it's difficult for them to do that with the traffic, the amount of traffic that's through there. They think it's a racetrack. They come through there 24/7, way over a legal limit for an alley.
Where the Babars live, when you come, pretty much the way that they built their house, or their house when they built it, when you walk out of their front door, you're practically standing in the alley. And,
Who's them?
pardon me,
I'm sorry. Who's that?
Omar Babia.
when they live at 971. And the way that theirs is, it's like there's the alley, and they walk out of their front door and they're practically standing in the
Yeah,
alley.
their porch is right
When
there.
you come down our section of the alley, it's like You're driving right in my front room practically, you might as well say, because it's really close to the house.
Okay. Do you have anything else you want to say at this point? You can come back up if you want.
No, that's all right at this
Okay,
point.
all right. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to this alley? Okay. And again, I need your name and your address, please.
Bob Adkins, 1014 Woodlawn Avenue,
Okay.
and I live just right down the street. I have an alley that goes right by my back door, and it is probably from here to this lady here, and we've never gotten ran over yet. We raised 3 children on our lot, and we normally had approximately anywhere from 10 to 20 kids playing there at any one time. None of those ever got ran over by being in the alley. And I can't really understand how someone would want to have an alley blocked off to where their neighbors can't use that alley. You know, I mean, if someone had a reason for closing an alley, I could ask you to close mine. But then that sure wouldn't be helping my neighbors out. So I don't feel that there's a reason for closing the alley. And as far as speeding vehicles, I've never seen a car speed down their alley. Of course, I don't live there, I admit that. But where would they be speeding from or speeding to when you're turning directly off from Woodlawn onto the alley? I mean, to make a left-hand turn and be speeding, you must be, probably have a really fast car. So I don't really see that there's speeders, that the problem is cars speeding down through there. And I can't understand how anybody would ask for an alley to be closed for their own private use. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi. My name is Tanya Green. I live at 976 Fairlawn Avenue. If you look at the map that was provided by the petitioners, you'll see that 972 is marked on there. I'm right next door.
Okay.
And I apologize, I have a lot to say. I'm going to try and keep it under control here and keep it on point. First of all, I looked at the petition and I read it very carefully because I thought maybe I'm just being a jerk. That happens, I've seen me do it. This petition, no less than 4 times, and the petitioners as well this evening have used the same statement. This alley serves no other purpose than our driveways. That's what they say. And they say it and say it and say it and capitalize it in their petition to make sure you hear it again. Because they think if they say it enough, they're going to make it true. Here's why it's not. My driveway, my garage are in the east-west facing alley. The intersection to the north and south alley they want vacated is 100 feet from my garage. They don't want me to use the closest access to my garage and my driveway. I find that offensive. I find it absurd. And I'm not happy. The Ohio Revised Code defines an alley for me. I looked it up. I really did study because I wanted to be informed. And it defines an alley for me, telling me that the purpose of an alley is to grant access to side, rear lots and buildings. Pretty much sure that's what I'm using it for. As far as the closeness of the alley to their homes and doors, now actually let me back up before I go there. If this alley served no purpose other than their personal driveways, I trust that the city would not have built it prior to them putting their homes there. But since Mr. and Mrs. Sayer and Mr. Omar's family, and I know that's not his last name, but I'm trying not to butcher it out of respect, since they moved in, they said, yes, this is the lot we want. This is the home I want. I want to put my home on this lot in this neighborhood. The lot is really, really narrow, but it's the one I want. And I want my door here, and my driveway here, and my garage here, and that's where I want to live. Great. It's not as if the city's coming in and saying, well, we want to put a road through your yard. It was already there. They chose to live there. No one did this to them. They did it to themselves. And now they're unhappy. Well, I'm sorry that they're unhappy. If your home no longer serves you, maybe you need a new one. I don't know what else to say. In regards to children and pets, again, really? It's been my experience that close supervision and teaching children not to play near the road is reasonably effective, regardless of their age. And if your pets are properly restrained, leashed, harnessed, fenced, kenneled, you don't have a problem with them running in the road. That's responsible pet ownership. If they're running in the road, that's your fault, not anyone driving down the road. I even took a look at their signatures on their petition. And there's a lot of them. It's pretty impressive. And I took the time to look everybody up, take a look at where their homes were and how they were positioned. Because to me, this north-south situation is not in a bubble. It connects to the east-west situation, and that's where my issue is they want to deny me that access. Of the signatures on their petition, there are exactly 8 of those people whose homes are adjacent to the east and west alley, out of all those signatures. There's a lot from the north side of Woodlawn. Those people have their own alley. They're not worried about it. Of the 8 people whose plots are adjacent to the alley, all of those people have access to their driveways and garages from either Woodlawn or Fairlawn. They don't have to go around back to get to their garage. So to me, that kind of negates the power of all those signatures. There is one portion of this petition that I'm taking extremely personally. And that is, on page 2, there's a statement that says, so why should we be put out? I believe it's in the top paragraph, the first full paragraph. And it says, so why should we be put out trying to get into our homes at the end of the day and having to wait on traffic? I don't know who wrote that, but I would like to respond. The grid arrangement of this neighborhood runs from Ridgelawn Avenue to Church Street. It is the same for those 4 blocks. Everyone has the same alley situation, Ridgelawn to Church Street. Correct me, there's not an alley between Ridgelawn and Fairlawn. Every single one of those people know that occasionally you have to pull into somebody's driveway to let a car pass. All of them know that from time to time, yeah, you have to wait 20 seconds for your neighbor to pass by you. It's called courtesy. It's part of living in a neighborhood. If you don't want to live in a neighborhood, don't move there. I don't understand why this is complicated. I truly am baffled. You simply accommodate your neighbor. It's not that big of a deal. You don't have to like me. You can hex me from your home. I don't care. But I should be allowed to get to my garage without having to go all the way down the street and back up around. If they want to argue convenience as a reason for vacating the alley, let's talk convenience. Let's talk the 100 feet between my driveway and that alley. I think it's bogus. The point about it only existing for their use is completely bogus. I'm not the only person with a garage on that east-west alley that intersection is the closest access point. I'm not the only one. I'm the only one here, but I'm not the only one. There was also a statement about the alley being closed off during the recent construction on 30th Street, down towards the bottom of the petition. And I'm not sure exactly what it says. I'm paraphrasing here. I think something about there was no public outcry or some nonsense like that. Well, that's because it's a construction barricade and we're all grown-ups and we know that construction is temporary. That's life. Sometimes you get inconvenienced and you have to deal with it. It's not that big of a deal. Why the barricade is still sitting there is an excellent question, and one that I actually posed to the engineer's office this afternoon. And I wasn't satisfied with my answer, just so you know. So the bottom line for me is, their 2 points are irrelevant. They are not valid points. If they want the city to make a change, they need to make a case that they have a unique problem and it requires a unique solution. Their problem is they have to share, and cars are loud and sometimes go fast. Would I stand here and tell you that no one ever speeds in the alley? Nope, that would be stupid. Of course people speed. They speed on my street too, and they speed behind my house as well. I hoped and prayed the city would never improve the alley behind my house because it made my kids safer. What I will ask you to question is perception of what speeding is. Because, we all try and do our civic duty and help people to do right. That's what we do. Mrs. Sayer has decided that it's her civic duty to shout "slow down" at every vehicle that goes by, which she did this afternoon as I was traveling at the excessive rate of 8 miles per hour. And I did videotape my speedometer. If you'd like to see it, you can hear your voice. I had my phone propped because I knew it was going to happen. And I thought, well, maybe something is different. Maybe I really don't know how fast I'm going. No, 8 miles an hour. Safety risks should include startling people operating motorized vehicles by yelling at them. Just a thought. They don't have a unique problem. They don't have a unique need. They need to control the kids and keep them safe. Control the pets and keep them safe. And either accept that you decided to move onto a lot that doesn't serve your needs anymore, or don't. I don't have any sympathy for the situation, because the rest of us, this kind of petty, intimidating, whatever this is, I won't even speak for anybody else. I'll just speak for me. I deserve better. I've lived in my house 14 years, and there is no reason for me to be yelled at when I'm trying to go to my property. It's ridiculous. I want this council to not tell them that their convenience is more important than mine. That's what I want from you. So however this goes, I feel confident that I've made my case. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comment? Anybody else wants to speak to this issue? Yes, sure.
I'm going to talk to the president.
My name is Peggy Adkins. I live at 1014 Woodlawn Avenue. And I've waved at Debbie several times because I'm probably the one person who goes through her alley. Notice I said her alley. More times than not. I live on the corner of 29th and Woodlawn. If my daughter and I are going shopping and we're taking 30th Street, I usually go down, go through the alley. My daughter lives the second house on Fairlawn. We're already headed in our direction. I understand that Omar has a daughter and a pet. I understand that Debbie has small children there. She has several children, and she has, as far as I know, there's always several children there during the summer, especially. It's just common sense, if you know children are around, to watch for them. I'm a grandmother. I'm not headed down the street to see how many kids I can pick off before I get to 26th Street. But the thing that I want the council to consider is that if you let this go through, you're setting a precedence for the city of Newark. The city of Newark is built on grids, just like our neighborhood. And you can go in any direction, it doesn't make any difference. But when you get to there, you're going to find that it's the same thing. Now, some of the newer housing developments don't, they have their garages facing the front of the houses. But if it's an old neighborhood, 9 times out of 10, they have to go to the back of the property. I live on the corner of 29th and Woodlawn, and let me tell you, when people get tired of the traffic on 30th Street, they think nothing of jumping in the alley and going behind my house. And sometimes they stop at the stop sign that I had to fight for 6 months to get when my kids were little, to keep from getting run over. And because they don't want to wait on the traffic, they don't want to wait on the lights. They just want to get where they're going. I personally try to keep it at 5 miles an hour when I go through the alley. I look for kids. I look for animals. I have a dog. I'm just a normal person, but I just don't think that shutting this alley is a good idea. I think it's a bad precedent to set for the city. And I think that that's what will happen in the long run. We'll end up with neighbors against neighbors, neighborhoods against neighborhoods, and suits and all sorts of things, all because 2 people wanted an alley closed in the middle of a thoroughfare from Ridgelawn to Church Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mrs. Floyd, I'll go ahead and make a comment.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, as the councilman for that ward, I'd just like to say the bottom line is there's no consensus of the neighborhood that alley should be vacated. You know, my job is to represent the entire neighborhood and the entire ward. And while I understand people's concerns that live directly adjacent to the alley, I can't in good conscience vote to vacate public property for private use while so many residents of the neighborhood are opposed to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Diane?
Well, for one,
Say again your name and address.
I'm Diana Corder, 964 Fairlawn Avenue. They talk about them using the alley to get to the backs of their houses. Okay, this alley, there's a long straight alley in the back, as you can see in the diaphragm, or the thing. When you come down, when you turn from Woodlawn to get to the back alley, or you turn from Fairlawn to get to the back alley, there's a big sharp turn there that, you know, when you're turning this big sharp turn, you're either about taking out our fences, putting big ruts in the yards. I can't think of her name, not the last lady that was up here, the one before. They barely use, their cars are always parked out front. It seems to me if you're coming down that, you're trying to get to that alley, there's 29th Street. There's 26th Street. From 29th Street to 26th Street, that alley goes straight through. It seems to me, if you're trying to go home, even you can get to it off of 30th. Why do you need to turn down that little bit of an alley and make that sharp turn when it would be so much easier? And as far as alleys being vacated, they're vacated all over this city. As far as them saying about the kids, they do watch their kids. But when your house, and we have lived in our house for 22 years. When we bought our house, this wasn't an issue when we bought our house because there was no houses back there. It was just big field with trees and the kids played in it. then they built the other houses back there. Omar didn't buy his house that way. That house was already put there when they bought the house. So he didn't have it built that way. And I just don't think it's right that we, just to accommodate a few people, when I went and got signatures, and even as Mr. Roletta says, everybody opposes it. There's a lot of people that didn't oppose it also.
Anybody else?
Mrs. Floyd?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd just like to point out the email you gave me here. And I'd also like to point out that there are numerous other families that have reached out to me in opposition to this who aren't here tonight, but did reach out to me, opposed this, and also emailed several members of council. But this
One
email...
email, didn't you? Did you get one email?
I believe the comments out of order.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I just want to point out this email from the engineer here. It says, past practice going back over my 20 plus years here is that if there was any sort of objection from the neighbors who frequently use the alley, then council did not move forward with the vacation. They only went forward with pretty much unanimous support because you can't easily undo this. Just want to point that out.
I want to make a few comments because I use alleys all the time. I live in downtown Newark. Alley's how I get to my garage. Once they tear up Mount Vernon Road, alley's going to be how I get to anywhere. And I live the second house from an alley that goes between Elmwood and Mount Vernon Road. The house on either side of that alley are right on the alley. There's like this much grass, and then there's a house. And there are kids in both of those houses from time to time. They're rental property, so it changes. I drove by to see the alley today. I know there are alleys around this city that don't look like alleys. I had to see one in the 7th Ward one time that was basically grass and had a tree growing in the middle of it, but on the city map it's still an alley because it was an alley at one point somewhere. An alley basically is city property, and when we vacate an alley, we in effect are giving that property to the people who ask for the vacation. And I agree with what Mr. Roletta said and with what the engineer said. If we have opposition to this, we don't pass things like this because once you do it, then you can't undo it. If we take this away and say this isn't an alley and this becomes your private property and your parking lot, then we cannot undo it. We cannot change it. So I will not be supporting this. I don't know what anybody else has to say. If we...
I'll make a comment.
Yeah.
Well,
Mr. Johnson?
We went through this, a year ago or so when we were...
Right.
And came up with the same decision. That,
Yep.
And I agree, I will not vote to vacate that alley.
Okay. Mr. Frazier?
I have access to my garage strictly by an alley, and the other condition is my alley goes directly to parking lot for a park. And so we have drug activity and we have all kinds of unsavory behavior back there, but ultimately it serves a public purpose, and that's for the benefit of the community. Because there are families that go back there, and there are people that are trying to access their other homes through the alley as well. And so I understand the desire to secure your property and the desire to vacate this, but ultimately it serves a better public service and it serves other people as well. And we have to look at the greater public service this alley is serving for that whole community. So I will not be supporting this as well.
Can I ask a question?
Yes. Go up to the, and give your name, please.
Debbie Sayer, 963 Woodlawn. Number one, our house was also built before we bought it. We didn't have it built. But we moved in February 1st of 2002. Since we moved in our home, the city has not maintained our alley not one time. Every dime that has been put into that alley, we've had it graded twice. We've paid for every bit of gravel that's been put down. The back alley that runs east and west is graded down and gravelled and maintained every year. It was actually just done a few weeks ago. If y'all are opposed to vacating the alley so that we can take care of it, then I just ask that it be maintained every year just like the other alley is. I'm not putting another dime into it for everybody else to fly through there and tear up.
I understand, and we've got alleys all over the city that have, I call in potholes in alleys very frequently.
Well, I understand that, but if they can maintain that back alley every year and it's connecting, why can they not do that when they're there?
I don't know. That goes through the street department, so you just need to contact them.
I contact them all the time, and I'm always told the same thing. We aren't maintaining it. Well then, why should I have to destroy my car and the rest of us destroy our vehicles that we try to keep nice because the city can't maintain our section when they can maintain the rest of it? These people, if they all want to complain about they don't want to close our alley, but yet their alley is far better maintained than mine.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
So, Mrs. Floyd, I'm just wondering how this process works. It just says discuss, so...
That's all we're doing is discussing. If there is no motion, then we're done, in effect.
Thank you.
Is there anybody who has anything else to say, or Mr. Costa?
Bill Cost, 1639 Krebs Court. It's just kind of a point of reference. About a month ago, the quarters came to me and were trying to explain to me what the situation was from their point of view. And I went down and took a look at the alley where their home is. About a year ago, Curtis, you're absolutely right. We did have this in front of us. And at that point in time, the fire department would not agree that if they would allow this, or they objected to it. In the meantime, they have agreed to allow this to happen. They do not any longer have an objection. And the other point that, from what I've seen, the alley near the quarters home, I do not know any of these other folks, so I don't know. I realize I live in the neighborhood. The alley right near their home is an extremely tight situation between their house and the house on the other side of the alley. I honestly can't imagine anyone wanting to use it, to be honest with you. It's so narrow, it's gravel and dirt, and it's about 2 sidewalks wide. And they have hedges that are right up against it, and the other house is right up against it. It's a very tight situation. So I can understand that part of it. And as I said, the fire department had signed off. So what I had them do was just get the signatures that they were told they needed for the properties that touch that alley that run north and south between those 2 areas. So that's what they did. So I just want to tell you that's where this has come from. I'm also of the opinion that the construction on 30th Street, I'm sure, has brought a lot of this to a head again, and maybe in a bigger way. But I'm always amazed at how people cut through alleys at the kind of speed they do, or how they use alleys. I guess until I got on council, I never realized just how important alleys are in the city of Newark, but they certainly are. There's no doubt about it. So anyhow, I just wanted to give you a point of reference of where bringing this back had come from. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Bob Adkins, 1014 Woodlawn Avenue. In reference to the tightness of the alley, people who are in the vehicles have apparently passed a driving test. Therefore, they should be capable of making that turn. So, therefore, I can't see where a person's ability to turn in and out of the alley would have any effect on that. Because I'm sure that anyone in this room that drives can make that turn.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, we are adjourned. Safety is next.
Good evening. We'll call to order the Safety Committee. Before us today is Ordinance number 1616, amending Chapter 618 of the Codified Ordinance of the City of Newark. So this is an update to the ordinance, adding conditions for seriously injuring another dog, killing another dog, and restricted animal registration.
Is there any comments from members of the committee? Any comments from members of the audience?
I guess I'll speak to this a little bit. Although you there's two sections to this. I brought up one, Mr. Fraser brought up the other. The first one being, we're changing the classification of a dog who seriously injures a dog or kills a dog. Originally, if a dog killed another dog, it would be deemed dangerous. In this situation, we're changing that. If a dog seriously injures another dog, it's deemed dangerous. If a dog kills another dog, it is deemed vicious. So that gives us the ability to put some more restrictions on a dog who has killed another animal, who obviously is vicious. The other part of this is the part that I had brought forward, was the permit requirements for restricted animal ownership. And it basically says that when you have an animal who needs to be permitted, being a vicious dog, that is, that needs to be done annually by calendar year. It needs to be done by the 31st day of January. What that does is it eliminates an administrative nightmare, quite honestly, for our animal control officer, who now has to chase down vicious animal registrations on a monthly basis because they were having to register their animal for a 12-month period of time from the time they registered it. Every month you have a new batch of people who registered a dog previously, and it perpetuates forever. Now he's going to spend 1 month dealing with registrations only, and then the rest of the 11 months dealing with actual animal problems, which is serving the community, I believe, in a much better way. That explains it in a nutshell.
I think you did great.
I think it strengthens our law and should be. I'll vote yes.
I will make a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Floyd, second by Rapp.
Any other comments? Mr. Cost?
I don't know why I'm further away.
Usually. Just to make a dramatic entrance.
Yes. Painful. Bill Cost, 1639 Krebs Court. The last time we all had these discussions and we voted the new legislation through, the 3 points that I said I still had concerns with were the classifications, the penalties, and the enforcement. I think what you're doing here helps clarify the classifications and the penalties, but I'm going to reiterate again, I still have major concerns about our ability to enforce what we're doing here, because we have one dog warden, and we have, I think the number is 14 less police officers than we have, than we're supposed to have. I'm very concerned that we're going to have police officers out chasing dogs, the ones that Toby or whoever the animal control officer is. When it's above and beyond them, I'm assuming it goes to the police officers to do some of this as well. And I have real concerns about the enforcement. I'd love to see us be able to have another animal control officer to help out. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll agree with Mr. Cost. I think another animal control officer would be a wonderful addition, as well as the additional 14 police officers that are on our police force that we have budgeted for, or not budgeted for, but allocated it as far as positions. And as soon as somebody can come up with a way to pay for any part of that, I would be in full support of that. Right now, the only way I know to pay for any of that is to eliminate services elsewhere. So, until we can pay for that, I don't know what else we can do. But we have a lot of laws We have a lot of laws being broken. Enforcement is up to the police department, the safety director, the safety department, and I think they do a great job with what they do have. Short of manpower should be a reason why we shouldn't have laws.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair. And I'd rather have the law, so at least there's some kind of way to go, because without it, it's Katie Burke to it.
Mr. Blake?
Mr. Chair, can I direct a question, Director Spurgeon? Please. Director, I'm curious, Section 2 deals with the administration of the pet requirements for the restricted animal ownership. And I was just curious if you could shed some light. I mean, is the animal control officer currently going throughout the whole year and dealing with this? I guess I wanted to hear from your perspective as to how this would help your department or not help, or how you view that.
While I can't speak to the specifics of how we do things now, I believe generally speaking you are correct, and I do believe the revision would enhance those efforts, make it more streamlined what we're doing, as Representative Rath has said.
So consolidate it all to the beginning of the year.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir.
Any other comments? All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes 5-0. With that, we will adjourn. Thank you, everybody.